Hello everyone, welcome to this edition of MeteoMark's Weather. It's great to have you on the channel today. We're going to be looking at, most importantly, the potential for some tropical wave action here, especially across the western parts of the Caribbean, Central America in particular. That's where we're going to see not only some Pacific moisture, but a big tropical disturbance combining forces with a front, and it's going to really focus some very heavy rain. Do we have any chances of tropical development over the next 2 weeks? We'll explore all those possibilities, and we're also going to be looking at some major lake effect snow and lake enhancement and some heavy wet snow on the backside of this developing coastal low. As we stretch early this week, some areas could see a half a foot to a foot of snow, especially in the snow belts. Let's get into it. All right, we're starting off here with the GFS for the tropics, and then we'll pivot towards the European in just a couple minutes here. So you can see here as we stretch through November 10th here, Sunday, until Monday. So this is Monday morning at 1 a.m. You can see some gusty showers moving through the central Lesser Antilles here. This area of moisture across parts of Honduras here in Belize. This is going to be a lot of heavy rain, and this is the big story over the next several days to couple weeks, actually, because you can see this frontal boundary showing up here on the GFS model. It's going to help focus the moisture from this tropical wave heading slowly to the west-northwest here. And looks like for the most part, Jamaica through midweek stays mostly dry with only a few showers, especially on the east end of the island. But you see the heaviest rain starts to pivot towards Belize and northern Honduras as we stretch the 12th into the 13th. You can see that heavier rain moving up the coastline of the Yucatan Peninsula here, and lots of showers across the southeastern Bahamas. Northern Bahamas, for the most part, clears out until about the 15th or 16th. You get a secondary front moving through. Now, the good news is here, look at through the 15th, we start to get some clearing across Central America, but we're going to get into these rainfall amounts over the next several days. They're going to be very heavy. And as we stretch through the 16th, the 17th, we do have another tropical wave that pivots north towards Cancun. It's going to provide some very heavy gusty showers and thunder showers, more heavier rains with this tropical wave riding up along this frontal boundary. And then you see that pivot southward towards Belize as this front tries to push across parts of the northern Caribbean here. So you get the idea. Look at this. Yeah, we have a tropical wave out here, but it's very hostile. Hostile environment. You can see these frontal boundaries have pushed this far south. We're going to start to see more wind shear and dry air take over, but look at this. On the 21st, we start to see another tropical wave across Honduras, Belize, Nicaragua here up through the Yucatan Peninsula of Mexico up to Cancun here. So heavier rain is going to be the big story across the Western Caribbean here over the next 2 weeks. Now, we do start to see more showers breaking out across Dominican Republic, Puerto Rico, St. Croix area through the 22nd into the 23rd. Cancun seems to be the hot spot for very heavy rains, so we're going to watch for that. But, you know, if we just run through this once again really quickly, you can see through this week, look at northern Honduras there, Belize, parts of the Yucatan Peninsula. GFS is a little bit more optimistic in moving this out by the 15th into the 16th as we go through time. Let's take a look at the European run. Thanks to Tropical Tidbits for our European tropical model analysis here. So as we go through time, you can see where the heaviest rain is going to be from southern Hispaniola here, southwestern parts of Dominican Republic, Haiti, and then through Central America here. You can see a lot of this missing Jamaica, which is great news, but look at Honduras here. And Belize really socked in with heavy rain. You can see with that tropical wave combining forces with the tropical moisture along the southern end of this boundary, this frontal boundary that's continuing to stall, is going to be the focal point through the 11th here into the 12th of some tremendous rainfall totals. We're going to get into those momentarily here. You see Jamaica, unfortunately, starting to get some of that heavier rain as we head towards midweek. Now it starts to pivot towards the north coast of Honduras and southern Belize, eastern Belize, through Thursday into Friday here. You can see that washing out across the southeastern Bahamas here. The northern Bahamas clearing out nice. Look at the Gulf, clear as usual. Some of these showers getting up towards Cancun by this point, but watch this. Look at the eastern Caribbean. You are drying out for the most part, maybe just some scattered showers. This frontal boundary across the north central Caribbean islands, southeastern Bahamas, that's going to bring some heavier rains and gusty showers and thunder showers through November 15th here. You see up here across the Gulf, that is the next front, but yeah, it kind of shuts down for a good portion of the Caribbean here. We do have a tropical wave approaching Trinidad, Tobago, up to St. Vincent, Barbados area, Grenada, through Wednesday, November 19th. That pushes into the Eastern Caribbean come the 20th into the 21st. It's kind of weird this late in the season. We're continuing to see these stronger tropical waves as they progress to the west. Now, so far, it doesn't look like any of these are going to develop, but you can see Jamaica, unfortunately, by the 22nd here, we're seeing some very heavy rain here across Jamaica, parts of Honduras again, Haiti, Dominican Republic, eastern Cuba, southeastern Bahamas again. And it focuses along this frontal boundary. You can see this tropical wave looks very vigorous for late November through the 23rd here. So that means more heavy rains for northern Honduras, Belize, the Yucatan Peninsula here. This looks a bit strange and ominous for late November. Sea surface temperature analysis here is continuing to show those warmer sea surface temperatures here across parts of the Caribbean, especially the Western Caribbean here towards the Yucatan, Belize, and Honduras. Rainfall amounts across the Western Caribbean here. It is going to be northern Honduras, unfortunately, that gets pounded, as well as eastern and southern Belize here. It's northern Honduras, though, that's going to see the worst with this major tropical wave disturbance type thing. Look at that. Parts of northern Honduras getting upwards of 400 to 600 millimeters here. Widespread 200 to 400 millimeter amounts here into Belize as well. As we stretch through the Cayman Islands, 100 to about 150 millimeters. Parts of eastern Jamaica towards Portland Parish, upwards of 125 millimeters, but most of the island, thankfully, only eking out around 40 millimeters. Much of the same through Haiti, Dominican Republic, some parts of Dominican Republic, upwards of 60 to 70 millimeters. And look at Puerto Rico and St. Croix, nothing more than a quarter to a half an inch of rain. And looking at the GFS here into the Western Caribbean, yeah, it's going pretty much the same as the European model over the next week, and we just pile it on here later on towards the end of November as well. Look at this. Some areas of northern Honduras, 500 to 600 millimeters. Parts of eastern Belize, upwards of 600 as well. Look at Cancun, 400 millimeters. And there it is into parts of, yeah, you get the idea here. Through Dominican Republic, parts of, Puerto Rico, even the east areas of Jamaica, upwards of 100 millimeters. Most of Jamaica, though, is just like on the Euro, though, it's 30 to 40 millimeters. Same with Haiti as well. As we look at the Eastern Caribbean for our European run, pretty quiet to start here through the Lesser Antilles, pretty dry all the way up through Puerto Rico until we get about later in the month here. We get a tropical wave that actually moves through Trinidad, Tobago, all the way up to St. Vincent, Barbados area here, Grenada. Watch out, some of these areas could approach 90 to 100 millimeters of rain. The Virgin Islands, nothing more than 20 to 30 millimeters. As we look at GFS rainfall amounts here, yeah, you can see the tropical wave action there through parts of it's going through parts of Dominican Republic, Haiti, Puerto Rico area through the 17th and 18th. We start to get more moisture pulling in here across Trinidad, Tobago area, some areas approaching 100 millimeters. Watch out for that. The GFS is going a little bit heavier with Puerto Rico through St. Croix. These areas, some areas could approach 100 millimeters. And of course, as always, thanks to Tropical Tidbits for our mid-layer dry air analysis. You can see as our tropical wave disturbance pivots towards Honduras and Belize, that's going to bring that surge of moisture even over towards parts of Jamaica, the Cayman Islands in particular, southeastern Bahamas with that frontal boundary. Now watch as we head midweek here. Look at the eastern part of the Caribbean. That is where we're really getting into some dry air here. This could be the thing that tries to shut down the tropics as we head through the 16th, 17th, and 18th. You do start to see evidence towards Trinidad, Tobago. We do get a little bit of moist air here, but look at this. More dry air coming in, a little bit moist air just south of Jamaica by the 22nd. That surges north to Jamaica, Haiti, Dominican Republic, and towards Honduras with that next tropical wave that we'll unfortunately have to continue to watch out for here. All right, so our wind shear analysis here, you can see as we head through time, the Northwest Caribbean really getting into some massive wind shear here, 50 knots or greater. That's not supportive of any tropical development, but you start to see that lift further northward, and we start to get an area where it's only about 15 to 25 knots of wind shear, which is still a lot for a tropical system to endure. However, I don't expect, any development. These tropical waves and disturbances will likely remain a little bit farther to the south here, so they hold on to some of their tropical characteristics and produce a lot of heavy rain for Central America here in parts of the Caribbean islands. You do see, though, that if one of these were to develop, it would be very slow because the wind shear is still there. And then by the 18th into the 19th, you do start to see wind shear take over much of the Caribbean. Look at this. By November 20th, it becomes very hostile, 40 to 50 knot plus wind shear, except down here towards Nicaragua and Costa Rica, where it's next to nothing as far as wind shear, but not expecting any development down here. And looking at our future radar here with the precipitation depiction, look at this. So yeah, we've got some snowfall that's going to be moving across western Ohio as we head throughout the Sunday evening hours. You see the rain changing to snow. These convective showers and thunder showers across the Northeast, they are going to be continuing to surge into New England, only northern Maine with the snow. But look at this, 11 p.m., heavy wet snow around Cleveland, Akron area, Youngstown, moving into northwestern Pennsylvania, western New York. And this is some lake enhancement, so we're going to get some northeast winds on the backside of this, orienting this snowfall banding action going on here in Cleveland. This is through 8 a.m. on Monday. You can see it pivoting a little bit eastward, but a new band trying to solidify. Also, the I-81 corridor of New York. And look at how these bands orient. We're going to have several bands coming off Lake Erie and Lake Ontario throughout Monday, and they just intensify across northeast Ohio here. So we're going to get over those snowfall amounts momentarily. We could be looking at some big-time snows here in the snow belts. Especially as the further you get away from the lakes, you get away from that warmer temperature of the lake, you're going to start to see some of those snow belts really pile up. Now look at this, is 9 p.m. on Monday evening. You see those snow bands just lining up a little bit more northwesterly up here off Lake Ontario. But you get the idea. If we pull out here, look at this. You can see a lot of banding action with the snowfall, even some upper Great Lakes connections here. Cleveland, it does start to calm down just slightly for you through 4 a.m. on Tuesday, but then we do start to get on the east end of town more solidified snow over towards Erie and northwestern Pennsylvania. These bands become a little bit more northwesterly oriented here. Tug Hill Plateau, northwest Pennsylvania, western New York, and northeast Ohio. Look at this snow coming off of Lake Michigan as well. All right, our HRRR future radar here. This is our snowfall amounts being spit out of this model. So this gets pretty interesting because we can really get detailed here. Of course, we can zoom in a little bit on some of these areas. Look at Cleveland. You know, south side of Cleveland, you get towards 3, 4, 5 inches. Further south and east, that's where you get into the 4 to 8 inch totals. East side of town, all those suburbs as well. Look at Erie, right around 3 inches. But yeah, inland, that's where, away from the lake, away from the warm lake, that's where you're going to get into those 6 to 10 inch amounts. And then up here north of Syracuse in particular, 7 to 12 inches in some of these heavier bands. So watch out. Yeah, lake effect's going to be prevalent off Lake Michigan here as well. Northern Indiana, 16 to 19 inches. Even showing Chicago. That's interesting. East side of Chicago right around 8 to 12 inches. So very, very interesting there. So I just wanted to show you this on the HRRR future radar. Snowfall amounts here. Yeah, this goes through Sunday to Tuesday, 1 p.m. There it is. Cleveland itself right on the lake, 1.1 inches. But look at, you just go on the south side, you're getting into 3, 4, 5 inches, 7 inches towards, look at Akron, towards 7 inches, almost 8. Look at Meadville up here in northwest Pennsylvania, right around 12 inches. And as we go into Pennsylvania here, you can get an idea of snowfall amounts. Erie, 3.3, but look at just inland, 9 inches, down to Grove City, 6 inches. St. Mary's over here, 3.5. And Jamestown, right around 7, but look at just south of you, towards Bradford, Pennsylvania. We're getting up towards 7 to 14 inches. So watch out, even some up to an inch amount spreading further east here. And as we just continue to go further up the chain on the east end of the Great Lakes, look at New York State here. Syracuse, 3 inches, but look at just to the north in southern Oswego, northern Onondaga County here. This is where you're getting up into these 6 to 9 inch amounts with locally higher to a foot possible. Look at west of Rochester over here as well. You know, 6 to 10 inch locally higher amounts as well. All right, so unfortunately, Radar Omega with their latest update blew away precipitation depiction maps, so we're going to have to use pivotal weather here. Our trough moving across the east here as we pick up with our future radar. Midweek, look at this. Scattered rain and snow showers continuing across the eastern Great Lakes. And, I'll show you the Euro in just a few moments here. You're going to see the very similar picture painted here. Colorado low taking effect out here next Saturday. That's going to blast some warm air to the east side of it. Heavy wet snow in eastern Colorado, western Kansas, and Nebraska here. Watch this low really wind up, sending heavy rain to the eastward here Monday the 17th and the 18th. Watch out, though. I'll show you on the Euro. There's more pronunciation with the potential for a coastal low here. The GFS hinting at it, but it's more progressive open wave moving out to sea. And then behind it, a trough tries to kick in. Towards the 19th into the 20th here, you see blustery conditions. Now watch this. As we head towards Thanksgiving week here, we're going to see these warm air just blast eastward here as a massive ridge of high pressure, 1030 millibar high blasts in. It's going to be a raging furnace as we head towards Thanksgiving. Picking up where our future radar left off here with the European model. Look at that as we head through Tuesday. That trough pivoting off the coast, the lake effect snow continuing northeast Ohio through the interior northeast here, Pennsylvania, upstate New York, parts of northern New England. Look at that lifting off to the northeast. You see these isobars? That means the wind is going to be howling. It's going to feel a lot colder. It's going to feel like wintertime. Now, high pressure building into the southeast here, that's going to slowly push this inclement weather to the northeast, but it's going to play havoc on your joints, past injuries. Your body's going to really feel this pressure gradient. Finally starting to put an end to some of this, but by Friday we start to see some lake effect rain and snow showers kicking back in here with some impulses of energy riding up here into the northern plains. You see the next system looks like a classic Colorado low scenario. We're going to bring some very warm air up here into the Ohio Valley, mid-Atlantic region through the 17th of November. But look at this, right on the northern fringe, central Pennsylvania, eastern Pennsylvania, northern New Jersey, southeastern New England. We might have a coastal low trying to take over on Tuesday, November 18th here with some snow on the backside and mixed precipitation. We might have some wintry precipitation as this storm blasts up here east of Maine and Nova Scotia. You see these isobars. That means it's going to be tremendously windy, north and northwest winds blasting. Look at come Friday, the 21st, though. We get some light rain showers moving through parts of Ohio. Next system also looks like a Colorado low pulling up through parts of the Midwest and double high pressure across the east. As we stretch into Thanksgiving week, it looks like warmer times are ahead. All right, so looking at our rainfall totals here on the GFS, it's the Great Lakes is going to be where the lake effect action is. And then as we stretch through the 3rd and to the 4th week of November, you can see, wow, getting pretty active out here in the plains, parts of the Great Lakes as well. Pretty benign, though, as we head from Florida all the way up the East Coast. Maybe some heavier downpours around the Outer Banks here, but nothing too terribly heavy. So our total liquid equivalent precipitation here on the European model as we stretch through the rest of this week, the lake effect area is getting pounded here. And then as we get into next weekend, look at the plains here and then spreading eastward to the mid-Atlantic, parts of the northeast with that potential coastal storm that the European continues to grab a hold of here. Look at South Texas. Parts of your areas could see just south of San Antonio here towards Brownsville. Some of these areas could see up to 6 to 7 inches of rain. We'll watch out for that. Look at parts of the mid-Atlantic, 1 to 2 inches, and up here into the northern plains, some areas approaching 2 to 5 inches. Snowfall amounts here on our GFS models. You can see, look at through the weekend into next week here. Yeah, especially early week, right around Monday night, Tuesday. We're going to pile up those lake effect snow totals here. You can get the idea what's going on with these. We're going to zoom in here. So, parts of the Appalachians could see upwards of, 3 to 6 inches. Locally higher amounts to 8 inches. Look at Cleveland here. A lot of 3 to 4 inch amounts. You go on the northeast side of town, east side of town, you get into those 6 to 8 inch totals. Look at Erie. Erie, you're going to be right around 5 to 6, but look at inland. This is where you're going to get the 7 to 12 inch amounts here. Just to the north of Jamestown, getting more than a foot here up towards northeast of Buffalo and Syracuse areas, Watertown area, Tug Hill Plateau. Watch out. Some of these areas, look at the northern White and Green Mountains as well. Might get some really heavy snow totals here. And snowfall here on the European. Yeah, pretty similar here with the lake effect, lake enhancement, and what's ever on the backside there for the Adirondacks, White and Green Mountains. You can see really cropping up. We'll just take it through Monday the 17th here. So most of this is falling over the next couple days. You can see, look at the lake effect totals billowing up southeast of Chicago here, 7 to 8 inches across northern Indiana. Look at Cleveland here, right around 2 or 3 inches. I think the Euro is taking more into account, the warmer ground temperatures. It's going to be hard to break through that initially. But look at parts of northwest Pennsylvania, western New York, right around 6, 7, 8 inches. Tug Hill Plateau, 12 to 18 inches. Adirondacks, right around 6 to 12 inches into the northern White and Green Mountains. Now, let's continue to go further. Yeah, that coastal low right around, we get a timestamp here, right around the 18th. There it is. Parts of Pennsylvania could be seeing upwards of 6 to 8 inches with widespread 2 to 5 inch amounts. And before we continue with more weather coverage, if you did make it this far in the video and you like it, please everyone smash that like button. Really does help, gets the video out, more exposure. Question or comment down below. I always love to read and respond to your questions or comments. And don't forget, subscribe, bell notification button. Just past 21,000 subscribers. Let's get to 22,000. And I am only a couple days out from releasing my winter 2025-26 Outlook. Expect it sometime, especially probably likely this week, middle to latter part of the week. Let's continue with more weather coverage. Looking at our NAO index here, we are going seriously negative here. That means stormier times are ahead across eastern North America through the rest of November. And as we look through the MJO index here, we're sitting right around 6 here. It looks like we're just going to meander around 6, maybe close to 7 come later on in November. That would maybe signify we might be heading towards a little bit more active weather. So for our European upper air analysis, look at that trough dig in here Tuesday into Wednesday. That's going to be with the coldest air of the season so far. Lake effect snow with some wet snow on the back end of this coastal low system. So watch out. That's going to be lifting out, but a little secondary trough push here on Wednesday into Thursday. So remaining very unsettled, but look at the ridge developing across parts of eastern Canada. And then another very big trough for Tuesday, November 18th. This is that advertised coastal system. We might have to watch for some interior snow in the mid-Atlantic and northeast areas during this time. So we might have a little mini snowstorm developing. Look at eastern Canada continuing with that ridge. That's going to build southward across the eastern United States as well as we get into later towards Thanksgiving week. And here with the GFS, you can see we have our Typhoon Feng Wang here moving through the northern Philippines here. This is going to continue to cause major problems as a Category 2. It weakens to a Category 1 as we continue through the 11th into the 12th here, clipping parts of southeastern China. So now it looks like it's going to round the bend instead of heading westward here. It's going to move up towards Taiwan. The good news is as it approaches Taiwan, it does weaken with this wind shear along this frontal boundary. So we do weaken to a maximum tropical storm by the time the 12th comes along here. So that is the good news. It's going to be a very heavy rain producer, though, wind and wave action. You see the southern Japanese islands here. That moves some tropical moisture. But look at, for the most part, your South Korea here is dry. There's not a drop of rain. But is there any other typhoons looking out here? It looks like we're going to have a gusty tropical wave, tropical disturbance move through the central Philippines through the 15th into the 16th. You see some heavy tropical moisture moving out of the Philippines towards Vietnam by the 17th here. And this is going to slowly pivot northward towards China here. But it looks like southeast China again. Interior China, it looks like you're being protected by a ridge of high pressure and keeping those fronts and moisture to the southeast here and pushing out into the Pacific Ocean. We do get a reflaring up here of maybe a tropical system trying to flare up, but the wind shear and the drier air does start to take over. And liquid equivalent rainfall amounts here, northern Philippines through Taiwan. That's where the heaviest rain is going to be with our tropical storm typhoon action. Tropics are going crazy. They're into eastern Vietnam, southern Vietnam, right around the 18th and 19th. Look at that. We're going to get into these rainfall amounts. Look at Japan. It looks pretty quiet. South Korea, there's absolutely not a drop of rain. Look at Look at Central Vietnam, Southern Vietnam, 1,536 millimeters of rain. That is getting up into so danger zone, 18 to 30 inches of rain. That's crazy. Look at here in the northern Philippines. Anywhere from 300 to 700 millimeters, parts of eastern Taiwan, right around 400 millimeters here. So unfortunately, Radar Omega with their big update pretty much blew precipitation depiction maps completely out of the water. It's quite unfortunate. So we're actually going to head towards a very crowded map here for Canada. Unfortunately, I apologize for this because it looks a little spaghetti plot, so to speak, but you get the idea here. Out here's British Columbia. We do see some very tight isobars here with some gusty winds, mountain snow. Now, look at across eastern parts of Canada here. You're seeing this big low-pressure system ride up right around 989 millibars here, trailing front off the U.S. East Coast. And you get the idea here. There's going to be some heavy snow into parts of Quebec here through Wednesday into Thursday. You see that trough across eastern Canada and this ridge here in the central areas, keeping things a little bit on the quiet side. Very, very stormy out west as well, with these coastal storms blasting in, and coastal storms along the east coast of Canada as well. Look at those northern prairies, though, do start to get into some heavier snow as we stretch through Saturday, November 15th here. And some rain pushing up across southern Manitoba and Saskatchewan here, with some heavy wet snow on the backside of this low pressure from the United States. It does try to pivot towards the east coast, though. And look at this low bombing up here into the Canadian Maritimes. There's going to be some tremendous wind action with this as well. But yeah, as we continue to go through time here, you can ultimately see it's pretty much the tale of both coasts here with storminess. You get high pressure here in the central areas, central prairies, and then these storms along the west and east coast just continue. And you're going to see that snowfall is quite prevalent across British Columbia, parts of Quebec, and the Canadian Maritimes here. And looking at our rainfall totals here for Canada, or liquid equivalent as we would call it, because a lot of this will be snow. Look at the west coast of Canada, just blasting in over 100, 200 millimeters easily of liquid equivalent, a lot of that snow. Central prairies, upwards of 40 to 60 millimeters. Look at that, Manitoba, Saskatchewan area. And look at here across southeast Canada. Look at Nova Scotia, some areas approaching 150 200 millimeters here into Newfoundland here, Prince Edward Island, southeastern parts of Quebec getting about 60 to 90 millimeters. And as we continue to look for our snowfall amounts here across Canada, look at eastern Quebec there, western British Columbia, as that's where the heaviest snow is going to lie over the next week. And then look at this, central prairies also getting hit, Manitoba, Saskatchewan areas. Look at the key here. Some of these areas, 20 to 30 centimeters pretty easily. West Coast, 90 centimeters plus in those mountains. Look at across eastern parts of Quebec, though, 25 to 35 centimeters. Taking a look at temperatures through the week here, it is very wintry-like here in the Ohio Valley, parts of the Appalachians, interior Northeast, Midwest. Look at that. Most of the Great Lakes descending into the 30s for your highs Monday. That's lake effect snow weather. Also, we're pivoting the 30s here to northern New England come Tuesday. But look at the warm air behind it, building back into the Ohio Valley, parts of southern Ohio here, getting back into the mid-50s, even to parts of the mid-Atlantic, pivoting towards Thursday, November 13th. You can see another area of cooler air shot here into the northeast, mid to upper 40s for highs. But Friday, you kind of see where the troughs are out west. Look at that ridge here in the central areas and troughiness across the east here. And as we stretch through next Saturday, November 15th, this is kind of strange. We're actually getting up into the 60s here in Chicago, 70s across much of the upper Mississippi and western Ohio River valleys. We're eroding this cooler air to the northeast. Extended forecast from our hometown viewers, bring it to Scranton's upper Susquehanna River Valley of New York and Pennsylvania. So, scattered snow showers on Monday. Those widely affected lake effect showers. They'll be in the form of snow showers, maybe up to an inch in some areas, but most areas below an inch in a Monday night. And Tuesday as well, Veterans Day, we're going to see blustery conditions remain, those wind gusts increasing to around 30, 35 miles an hour. So it's going to feel a lot colder. Into Wednesday, Thursday, chance of showers, a warming trend towards Friday into the upper 40s. Plenty more weather to come. Here is a look at my affiliate. Check out these awesome, amazing maps.
I am proud to announce that I am now an affiliate with Trilogy Maps. TrilogyMaps.com, bringing you the most digital, customizable maps found nowhere else on the internet. These maps are simply stunning. It's an advanced layering system that makes these maps great for making forecast maps with ease or any other maps that you would like to display important information on. The resolution on these maps is simply amazing. From the detail of everything here in the States, and you can also create stunning, digital, professional layered maps from also across the entire world. And don't forget, in checkout, the discount code option, use my code, MeteoMark, hit apply, and you will get 20% off your order. So if you want the most professional, customizable, and affordable weather maps found nowhere else on the internet, look no further than TrilogyMaps.com. Link in the description down below along with your discount code.
As always, thank you for joining me for this edition of MeteoMark's Weather. Also, don't forget to join me on Facebook at MeteoMark, also Weather Northeastern, also Twitter at Weather Eastern. Don't forget it's MeteoMark.com, and don't forget, if you want to send me a coffee, there is a link, super thanks. You can smash that super thanks button or my PayPal link in the description down below. You can buy me a cup of coffee. Thanks everyone, share that video, subscribe if you haven't, smash that like button.